A year ago this week, one of the nation's largest COVID-19 outbreaks in a nursing home began right here in Central Virginia at the Canterbury Rehabilitation and Healthcare Center in Henrico.
In tonight's Problem Solver investigation, our Melissa Hipplett explains why doctors are pushing for changes at nursing homes and what Canterbury has done in the wake of the outbreak.
A year ago, we were right over there.
When we first met Kathy Campbell outside the Canterbury Rehabilitation and Healthcare Center in March of 2020,
are you there?
we watched her receive some scary news.
Did he test positive? He did?
Her brother, John Kozak, had just tested positive for COVID-19.
Is he showing any signs? No?
When we heard that, it was like my world just dropped.
Kozak never experienced any symptoms, but 51 of his fellow residents ended up dying from COVID within a matter of weeks.
There's a lot of people in there that I knew that are now gone.
Canterbury was one of the first nursing homes on the East Coast to be ravaged by the virus. And even though her brother survived, Kathy says the isolation of the past year has been brutal.
He's not where he was a year ago.
This recent window visit,
Hey, John. Hey, how are you doing, honey?
illustrates what Kathy is talking about.
You want me to try to get Katie for you? You don't want to talk today? No?
Today I asked him if he wanted to speak to his daughter, and he said no. And that's not my brother. He was never like that.
Dr. Jim Wright, the former medical director at Canterbury, says that separation and detachment has been just as harmful as the virus itself.
I think it's been responsible for a lot of decline, a lot of worsening dementia symptoms, weight loss, and deaths in facilities.
Wright says he left Canterbury last summer after 10 years there, after being told he was going to be stripped of most of his responsibilities. He believes the decision had to do, at least in part, with his candor during the outbreak.
I really wanted to make sure that the public knew our story from the inside.
Reflecting on what happened, Wright recalls watching the virus move from China to Europe to the West Coast and finally the D.C. area.
We knew it was coming down I-95 from D.C. and then Northern Virginia.
But he said facilities did not have the test tubes to put COVID swabs into, rendering them unable to test for the virus. On top of that, the Virginia Department of Health required facilities test for everything else before even considering COVID.
So my first suspected coronavirus case, which thank God was negative, took me 11 days to get results on. 11 days.
On March 19th, Wright got the news he had been dreading. A resident had tested positive for COVID-19.
For me, it was simply a call to action, just realizing that it was there. What I remember of those first 3 weeks is fluorescent lights, patients in rooms struggling for breath, not enough nurses, not enough CNAs, not enough PPE, everybody doing everybody's job.
Wright says the fear factor was high among staff.
It was partly responsible for our poor staffing. Nurses and aides would simply not come in. And I do not blame them.
He says the anxiety, combined with an already low staffing ratio at Canterbury, ramped up the spread of COVID, something that numerous studies have borne out over the past year. High staff turnover rates and poor staffing levels likely contributed to high COVID mortality rates in nursing homes.
I don't think we were different than anyone else. I mean, we're a publicly funded, publicly supported nursing home. Our chronic understaffing, which is the same as any other publicly funded nursing home, is driven by the necessity of saving costs.
Wright is now advocating for changes to the industry.
Squeeze. Thanks, honey.
While Kathy just waits for a day when she can finally go inside of Canterbury to check on her brother and give him a hug.
And I love you.
Oh, you're right.
I love Love you too, sweetie. All right, I'll see you soon.
We requested an interview with somebody at Canterbury, but they declined our request. A spokesperson did send us some information from the new administrator, Matthew Brooks. He said that Dr. Wright was not fired, nor was he let go from Canterbury. Also, he said they have increased wages across the board, increased transportation options for employees, and increased the availability of testing for staff and residents. Brooks said all three have led to a significant increase in new hires. Working for you, I'm Melissa Hippolyte for CBS 6.